I'm, of course, very excited. We began discussions a number of months ago. We announced that in the press and on SENS that the discussions had begun. And of course, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of detail to be looked after. There are 2 board approvals to get passed. So we're very excited that we've progressed to this point, and we think we shall progress forward from here quite well.
You're talking about 2 board approvals. We know there's a plan A and a plan B. Give us an indication of what the implications will be if the scheme doesn't actually work out.
Well, really it's down to regulatory authorities. The Competitions Commission is the major approval required going forward, and the shareholder approval. Now, of course, the shareholders own the company. It's their decision whether or not they want the deal to go ahead. So far, we've got positive support from about half our shareholder base. So we think so far we're quite confident. But if the shareholders don't want to sell the company, well, then we shall continue running it. You actually need 75% because it's being done by a scheme of arrangement. As I said, we've got half, so we are reasonably confident that we should get shareholder approval. In terms of Competition Commission approval, well, it's a very important process. We don't think there are per se many competition issues, but of course there's the part of the competition approval that refers to public interest. We take that process very seriously and we'll work with all parties on getting that approval.
Grant, in your personal capacity, will you be voting in favour? Well, how will you be voting when it comes to the scheme?
Yes, in terms of the offer that the board had to consider, the board approved the offer and will be recommending it to shareholders. And as part of that approval, each director has agreed to vote in favour of the deal. So I have some shares and options. My shares have votes and I'll vote in favour of the deal, as will the other directors.
Will you be selling your shares?
Yes, I, like any other ordinary shareholder and option holder, have to participate in the deal on the same basis as all shareholders have to. So I will be selling 51% of my shares and options into the transaction.
You mentioned the competition authorities. 51% is quite an interesting number. Why not look at 65% perhaps? Do you think that the number is very strategic, also ensuring that all parties involved are relatively happy and also taking into consideration the labour movement in South Africa?
It's quite a complicated thing. Once you've decided not to go for the full offer, and let me just say, I think that's a very positive thing. It's very positive for the country, and I think it shows really good faith and good intent on Walmart's part, that they are flexible and reasonable people and are interested in doing things that are in South Africa and Africa's interest. So I think it's a very positive thing. In terms of what percentage you end up with, again, there's very complicated reasons. You've got to look at the free float and the liquidity of the free float. And I think what Walmart has done here is they've tried to leave the free float as large as possible so that the remaining shareholding is as best valued as possible.
What about the branding scenarios that could play out when it comes to game and macro stores? Are you going to be adopting Walmart's branding?
To date, I don't. Walmart has offered their support and assistance in all of our strategies. They've made no demands in any dimension of the strategy and certainly have not said that we need to change any brands. And their track record around the world is they don't change the brands of the companies that they acquire. However, let me say, they have said to me and the local management team that should we want to rebrand one of our stores or use their brand in South Africa, either on products, on the internet, or one of our stores, certainly we were able to have that discussion with them.
What about branding for the rest of Africa as Walmart starts to roll out stores on the continent?
No, it's really the same answer on Africa outside of South Africa. Same answer. We trade in our brands there, Game, we've got Trident. Sometimes, we apply the same rules as we expand further into Africa. If we acquire a company, we'll keep its local brand. I mean, that's part of what you buy. So no, it's exactly the same answer for the rest of Africa. Taking
a look at sourcing, what kind of competitive advantage will that then give Massmart?
Certainly logic would say that we must get some competitive advantage. Food tends to be a local business. So I would imagine Massmart's about half food and liquor. I would imagine that there's not as large a procurement advantage as you can get on that side because it's governed by local supply chain and local economics. On the hard goods side, so that's home improvement and general merchandise as we call it, I would expect that Walmart must buy at a lower cost than us, and I would be looking forward to getting those costs.
Prior to this deal going through in this announcement, there was a lot of noise coming through from Labour and really a lot of concerns about wages and also about jobs when it comes to Massmart. How do you see this playing out?
I think it's being made out to be more complicated than it really is. The reality is Massmart is a South African company and has to comply with South African laws and legislation, and there's the basic condition of employment, there's the CCMA, the Labour Relations Act. Walmart is committed to support all of that. They've committed to recognise all union agreements, and so I don't really see why it would be a strategy of Massmart to somehow start announcing we'd like to have less jobs and pay less money. That would just be bad business. We have our employees' interests at heart. I would like our employees to be more productive and therefore earn more. I want them to have job security, and I'd like to grow the number of people who work at Massmart, not shrink. So certainly to Massmart, there is undoubtedly no risk of there being either lower wages or less people working in Massmart.
And what is your view about a lot of these international companies coming into South Africa and into Africa, wanting to get a bigger piece of the pie?
Well, let's be clear, this company will be run by Africans solely. You know, Massmart already had a 70% of its shares held offshore. Just with different type of shareholders. So this is a South African company, it is an African company, and it will remain so. In terms of investment of large foreign nationals in South Africa and Africa, well, I mean, we already have a lot of it. In fact, I think it was quite unusual that none of the retail players were here. So I think we're really just seeing our sector normalize to the other sectors. We've got foreigners involved in mining, we've got foreigners involved in banking, we've got foreigners involved in logistics. So I just think this is a normal step, and really all South Africans and people in the African continent should be quite excited. This is a big vote of confidence in us.
Just looking at the overall scenario that is playing out in Africa, we've got so many consumers with growing spending power. What is your overall take on Africa and where you think the African consumer is going to go? We know that a lot of Africans pay a big price for various products that we perhaps take for granted here in South Africa. That scenario is rapidly changing with more competition coming onto the market as well.
Yes, I mean, first of all, it's very exciting. You know, I think us Africans gained a sense of pride about how we dealt with the financial crisis. You know, as we saw many other economies around the world stutter and falter, really we just continued. We suffered a little bit from the recession, but I think we did well. Our banks are well. I think we've all got our heads held up high. So, and I think that's translating into the world looking at us differently. And of course the World Cup contributed to this. This is a great continent. It's going to grow faster than the average world growth rate. It's got to be a place, if you're a global player, to be invested in. Certainly we've believed that, and we've expanded into the region, and now it seems Walmart agrees with us. And I'm sure we're going to see many other companies agree with that perspective over time.